Well, hello, everyone. Welcome to another great episode of the Van Buren Variety Show. Glad you could join us. My name is Bob Van Buren. I'm your host for this show that we have once a week. We have a live show each week on Tuesday. But if you're not able to see the live show, that's okay. Don't worry about it. These shows are always archived, so you can watch it whenever you want to. But make sure you hit that like and subscribe button because that way you'll get updates of any possible shows coming up and hopefully a sneak peek of what's to come in the next coming weeks. So, hope you've all had a great week so far. I want to talk a little bit about the workplace. Some of us are still in the workplace, some of you are happily retired. But the workplace, if you think about it, the workplace today is not the same workplace that, say, even your parents and grandparents entered when they were first entering the workplace. Technology is constantly changing. So, even technology that we had just 20 years ago at the beginning of this century is completely outdated as well. So I brought some vintage photos that I've downloaded to kind of show you where we've been previously, whether it be 20 years ago or whether it be 50 years ago or even 80 years ago. So let's just see what the workplace was like decades ago. Now, you know what it's like now, whether it be office, whether it be manufacturing, whether it be retail. But how would you like it if you started a job and they gave you this kind of equipment to use on your job? Yes, I don't see a computer there. I don't see a cell phone there. Uh, there's probably a number of things you can think of that she doesn't have on her desk. So, yes, looks like she might be taking dictation. Is that what she would say? And she's taught, and I'd like to point out she's typing on a typewriter, all right. But look, do you see an electrical cord? That's a manual typewriter where you literally had to pound on the keys to make them work. So yes, that's kind of outdated technology now. Or how about, let's go up a decade or two, but what about a workplace that looks like this? I was told that this was a large banking center, and that is actually, quote, the bookkeeping department. Now check that out. It looks like they are just what, 10 key? I don't know. Maybe y'all can make sense of that, but it looks like it's 10 key to me. Don't see it computers and check out the styles back then. So, and then here's the gem of a ball. Some of you might remember this. Now, this was a little bit before my time. So my mother has talked about this, so that's why I know what they are. But tell me whether or not any of you recognize this right here. I'll give y'all a few minutes to look at that. Have you ever seen that before? And would you know what that was? Ready? Okay, give up. That is considered an IBM key punch card. And from what I've understood, again, I did not work with this, so correct me in the comments if I'm wrong. But once you did the punch, you inserted them somehow in the computer uh, for a special coding or let the computer pull up some kind of data. I don't know. So if y'all know kind of how that worked, and it, like again, I'd like to know how they punched them out. How do you punch out those little bitty codes in there? Did you have a special machine that did that, or just what? But anyway, point is that's key punch, and that happened a long, long time ago. Let's fast forward even 20 years later. Check out what this man is doing in this photo. From what I understand, this man is working at a data processing center at a bank. Check out what he's holding in his hand. For those of you who don't know, that is a reel-to-reel tape. Yes, I said tape. Yeah, before internet, before TCP/IP, before even cartridge tapes, this is what banks and other businesses use to back up their data. And usually, just for one backup, those took about 7 or 8 of those reel-to-reels. Can you imagine wagging those around? So, oh, it makes me really appreciate that technology has really, really changed over the years. So, again, the point of all this is you can see here offices today, technology wise, are not the offices that we had yesteryear. They're completely ones that are completely different. Technology changes every day. But the reason I bring up all this up is it's not only technology that changes, the workplace changes. We have different age groups, different generations that are entering the workforce, some that are leaving the workforce to retire. So sometimes it's very, very difficult to know, okay, we are a very diverse workplace now. We need to keep on top of our management skills and communication and our training, because again, technology is changing. If you plan to stay still in today's world, well, you're not going to succeed because you will be outdated before long. So how do we stay up with our management skills, our discussion skills? Well, we need people to tell us, to train us that are in that specialty, to train us all to how to keep up with technology, to get along with the different generations. You've heard the generation gap, but how do we all come together as one, or the one common goal? And that brings me up to my great guest tonight, ladies and gentlemen. She is an expert at this and training. So I'm going to talk to her, and like you, I will be learning something as well. So let me bring her on as well. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to introduce you to Dr. Keera Godfrey. She's going to be talking to us about her training and her management and her communication skills and how she can tell us to be better workers as well. Dr. Godfrey, welcome to the Van Buren Variety Show.
Thank you so much. It's my pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me.
You're so welcome. Glad you're here. So let's just kind of jump into it. You heard my opening monologue. We are working in a different workplace today than our parents and grandparents went into. So kind of tell us about your specialty, your training, kind of overall, kind of how you help the workplace today.
Yeah, definitely. So I am a change management strategist. I work a lot with large organizations and small who are going through large transformational change, meaning either that's from a cultural perspective, or they're trying to change the culture of the organization, or maybe there's a merger or an acquisition that's taking place, or maybe they're just changing their ERP system, or maybe they're just going to Microsoft 365, and there's like, well, this is a new way of working. So how do we bring people along on that change journey? So any type of change that's going on in an organization, that's exactly where we come into play. So it can be even from your onboarding, and we need to onboard people a little bit better. So what does that employee experience need to look like in order to do that effectively? So we like to say that we activate strategy through people. And so a lot of times in many organizations, to be successful, it's not organizations that change, it's not organizations that become that transform. It's really the people that make up the organizations. And that's what makes us successful. That's what gives us the true return on the investment from any type of system implementation or any type of new process, whether you're going into lean manufacturing or whatever you're doing, it's about the people. So bringing people along on that journey, that's something that we do. And that's where I find in many cases where either we're finding out from moving from your current state to a future state, to make that transition from that current state to the desired future state. Maybe that's training that's necessary. Maybe that's some coaching that's needed. Maybe you need a mentorship, or maybe there are some tools or resources that's missing, or maybe that's a new process that need to be revamped in order to make that transition. So that's where we come in. We come in and really look at what does that experience need to look like in order to improve performance.
Sounds really good. Did you, in my opening, I talked about the generation gap in my opening monologue.
Yeah.
Do you see in your experience that perhaps, I don't say adjust your training, but the way you have to make sure, like a person of Gen X, maybe they think one way, a millennial might think another way. So do you see like a cultural, also age difference, generation difference?
Yes. So many studies tell us, like now today, this is the first time in history that we have 5 generations in the workplace at the same time. So coming from our veterans or our traditional age group all the way down to Generation Z, this is the first time that they're all in the workforce at the same time. And so right now there are more millennials in the workforce. And so therefore, as we're making this transition, it's a change as well. And so being able to understand the different generations and why they behave the way they do, and being able to respect exactly what is it that they bring, and really helping with performance, helping with communication. There are a lot of millennials who are now in senior level positions. And so now what are the leadership skills that's needed in order to make the team successful? So that's an area that as we talk about change, and as we talk about the workplace, there are so many factors that go into play. And one being the different behavioral styles being one, the different generations being another one, cultural diversity. There are many different aspects that we have to look at today that before, I don't know if the attention was really there, for even my parents in the workforce. Yeah. It was like they got their work, they did their work, and they went home.
Yeah. So now, yes.
That is so different now. I mean, especially with COVID, now the lines are blurred between work and your workspace and your living space, and now. Many of us are working from home, so that's a difference as well that we have to consider. So how do you manage a virtual team, a global team? So those are factors that we have to consider in today's workforce, and technology is a part of helping us, enabling us to do that. So how we engage with technology nowadays is definitely an area that we need to focus on, making sure that we as users are willing and able to adopt this new technology and how we use it in our new way of working.
Sure. Now, I mentioned most of the time in my opening monologue about office work, but now you provide services to more than just offices, correct? You mentioned manufacturing as well?
Yeah, so in our space, the clientele it's definitely from manufacturing to the Department of Defense. Definitely, we have some military clients going into healthcare. We talk about that patient experience and how do we bring the patient experience along on that journey as well. So clients can be in the financial arena, in food and beverage, retail. So we have clients in a lot of different areas. And so when we talk about change and we talk about the workplace, so we're looking at it from two perspectives, one being the organization itself, and then one being the individual as well. So we have, as a change strategist and being a part of a change organization, we're looking at it from both angles so we can, again, to be able to support the users. A major factor in that is the leaders. So change is a major way. When we think about change, and a lot of research tells us that a lot of, especially when you're dealing with large system implementations, let's say you're implementing SAP. So SAP is a new system, and let's say we're implementing that company-wide and across our entire supply chain. The way you would normally manage someone not using SAP, or let's say they're using Excel. Now that person knows how to use SAP, a world-class system, you can't manage that person the same way. Now, a lot of the things that they were used to do may be automated. So now we're focusing on how do we really tap into strategically decision-making, bringing them to the table, innovating. So there are many different things that now we can do before we couldn't do, but now they have this knowledge. So leaders are now having to lead in a different way because their workforce is upskilled. And so looking at that change from the leader perspective, from the user perspective, that's a part of looking at the entire organizational ecosystem to make sure that the company thrives in a way that it's supposed to with a new system. So that's helping most organizations get their return on their investment, because ERP systems are quite costly.
I'm sure.
So you want to make sure that users are actually using it the way it's supposed to be used. And they're not going to do that
Right.
If their perception of the ease of use of the system, and their perception of the usefulness of the system, and their perception of the organization's ability to support the use of the system. So there are many factors that go into adoption and using technology in the workforce that we have to consider as we're building out and supporting our clients.
Sure.
So along with that is some of the training that we do. So I am a change strategist. I am a principal consultant for a company called Tier 1 Performance. And so I also have Naris Communications. And Naris Communications, we provide some courses that users, individuals can take. And a lot of that right now sits on my website. And we actually take people through this process of this. It's self-paced. So there are some courses that you want to learn more about, cultural diversity in the workforce, or if you want to learn more about becoming a transformational leader. So we just try to make sure that at the individual and the organizational level, people feel equipped to make changes the way they need to.
You mentioned the courses, Dr. Godfrey. I'd like to share with my audience
Sure.
some of the courses that you do teach. Ladies and gentlemen, she does have a website that I will share with you, but let's just talk about some of the courses that she's got. Very interesting courses. Now, these aren't the only ones. These are just some of many. So
Yes.
I'm looking forward to it myself. So let's just kind of go through the ones that I've seen, Dr. Godfrey. So let's pull this one up first. Tell us a little bit about this one here.
Yeah, leading in a culturally diverse workplace, that is a course that it's so important, especially in today's workforce. We talk about workforce and how things have changed over the years. Now we all work on to a degree in a global environment. So easily, I have clients who's in China, who's in India, and so now being able to really understand the various cultures, being able to understand, well, how do we work together? Even understanding the values that the different cultures may have as it relates to time, as it relates to family, as it relates to gender, as it relates to work hierarchy. There are many different factors as we think about culture that we must become more aware of and increase our cultural awareness in the workforce to be able to just work together and collaborate, again, as a way to perform better as well. And especially for leaders, that they're being able to understand their teams better. So this course really brings more awareness to what are those culturally diverse factors that we need to be aware of, and in order to appreciate, and how do you communicate more effectively, thinking about different cultures.
That sounds very interesting. It also sounds very necessary today
Oh,
in today's 21st century workplace.
Oh yeah, definitely necessary. Without it, you really, as anyone in the workforce, whether you're a leader or whether you're an individual contributor, being able to really appreciate the value of the different cultures, because many times you're not just, very few places sell locally. And so your clients, as well as your vendors, or even your partners, may be international. And so being able to appreciate that, and understanding the various gestures that certain cultures may exhibit, and what do they mean, and then being able to show respect in different areas. It's definitely helpful in a lot of different cases. It just, even as a leader, I think it builds your confidence when you know something, so you know how to approach a situation. And so, or even if there's a conflict, you know how to approach a potentially conflicting situation. And so being, again, with the goal in mind of performance and helping your company move forward.
I think it's very important because I personally, I'm blessed to work in a very diverse workplace, and so it's a learning experience. I mean, for me, it's like I can go outside my little bubble here and
Yeah.
say, okay, oh, this is what you believe. That, oh, okay, this is your culture.
Yes.
So it helps learn, especially in 21st century America.
Yes.
We are so diverse now. I mean, it's great to, what I'll use the analogy again, get outside your bubble.
Yes.
learn about somebody else. I think this would be an awesome, I'm going to just play that again, Dr. Godfrey. I think this would be something everybody could benefit from.
Yeah,
And
and just understand, I think about cultures, it's like it's not good or bad, it's just different.
yes,
And so being able
absolutely.
just to understand and appreciate the differences and how do we work together? We have a common goal of achieving whatever project goal we have. So how do we work together to achieve this goal? And so
Absolutely.
that's one of the great purposes of that particular course.
Okay, let's pull up another one. Let's look at this one. Now, that was a tongue tangler for me, Dr. Godfrey. So I'll let you say what it is. For some reason, ladies and gentlemen, I can't say that. I'm not going to try the
Yes.
transformational. I said it. There it
Yes,
is.
transformational. Yes, yes. So a transformational leader, that is a course. It's a self-paced course. There's 4 modules in there, and it's a pretty robust course because there are assessment questions. There's a case study in there. It's a narrated course, and then along with that, afterwards, we do have some coaching sessions as we go through it. But this course, when we talk about a transformational leader, the opposite of a transformational leader is a transactional leader. So someone who is delegating and do this and do that, that's more of a transactional. But a transformational leader is a leader who inspires their team to want to do something. And so there is a bigger purpose, a bigger mission in mind. And so transformational leadership is about doing something for the greater good. And now you're inspiring people to want to follow. So a part of that is really being able to articulate and express what is our mission, what are we doing, what's the calling of why are we doing what we're doing, and usually focusing on a greater purpose. And then how do you explain that? How do you tell the story? So there's a part of that course that talks about the storytelling of why this work is important, and then going into building up your team, from solving problems, to how to care for your team. There's a lot in that particular course. Hence the price is a little higher than the other one.
But worth it.
But it's worth it. It's a lot of work in there. So it's still self-paced, but we are building in some coaching, some live coaching sessions along with that. So to definitely, it's transformational leadership is not necessary in every single situation, but if there is a major change, and most people think, I remember I had a client some years ago, and he said, well, if they want to keep their jobs, they will adopt this new system.
Ooh, ultimatum.
And right. And I was like, it doesn't really work that way.
No. I've been in workplaces. They're not pleasant.
Yeah, it's not though. It's not, you can't, use like leadership by fear. You can't do that. It was not successful, mainly because it's like, as a leader, it's not so much. And before, I must admit, before in the workforce, it was your leader said something, so therefore you did it. And there was no questioning of why. You just did it because that's what you were assigned to do. But in today's work environment, it's not like that. Many people, you have to explain why. Why is this important? What's in it for me, or what's in it for the organization that I adopt this new way of working? And so being able to explain that and being able to tell the story and being able to be trusted. So that kind of communication and being able to understand the dynamic of how people respond and how they go through change. And so to a degree, that course even looks at from a behavioral standpoint. So I am certified in DISC, the DISC behavioral styles. And then I'm also certified in emotional intelligence, so the EQI 2.0. The biggest factor there is if I understand how people think or how they may think in a certain situation, then as a leader, I'm able to craft my messaging to target my audience. And so a
Sure.
major part of communications is understanding your audience. And so we just help organizations, we help leaders do that better. Understand your audience so you can communicate more effectively. And you may be communicating a change. So leaders now today's in workforce, they're not just the technical experts anymore. Leaders now are called upon to be change agents. They're
Sure.
now called
Yep.
upon to be
That's true.
coaches. They're now the mentors. Nowadays we're saying leaders are the healers now, and especially going through COVID, sometimes you become the counselor or you
Sure.
become
That's
the
right.
therapist. So leadership has definitely taken on many different faces. And so, but the common ground is communication with people, and that's where we focus.
Good. I've got a question for you. You brought up something that I'd like to kind of know, and I'm sure my audience would know. You said that you were, I guess, I don't know if you use the word specialist, but of the DISC Behavioral Index. What is DISC?
Yeah, so DISC is it's a behavioral style assessment. It started mainly, I think, about in the 1920s. So Dr.
wow.
William Marston, he is also the inventor of Wonder Woman, and he also was a
Wow.
part of inventing the lie detector system. And so in his
Wow.
research, he started by looking at what are there were four major quadrants of people. And then Dr. Carl Jung also took it forward. But the major premise of it was, and back then he didn't call it DISC, but he knew that there were four major components or major constructs of people. So you had D. D was for dominance. So you have the dominant behavioral style. So these are people who are very much so, they're results oriented. They're very goal oriented. They're like the ones in your workplace that get her done. They have that get her done type mentality.
Okay.
These are the ones who are very outspoken. But yet they are very effective because they are goal oriented, and so they're able to move people forward. They're very good at delegating.
That's good.
Then you have the I. I is for the innovators. So these are people who are very people oriented. These are the people that you meet in your family or just your friends who they never meet a stranger. Like they'll talk to anyone. They get their energy from people. Exactly. So yes, you. So you get your energy from people just talking and hearing stories. It's like yes, yes, yes.
Yep.
You're all for it. And then you have your S styles, and that's more the supportive style. And so these are people who are very people oriented as well, but they're into harmony. And so they are very on your workforce. They may be the ones who are very supportive. I mean, you give them something to do, they're very organized, and they will get it done. They may be a little bit more quiet, and it's like I always call them like the silent storms. It's like, don't think that because they're quiet that it's apathy. No, it's not apathy. They're just thinking, and they are strategizing on how to get something done, but they like harmony in the workplace or harmony in their life, period. Very balanced people. And then you have the C style, which is more conscientious. And they are the ones who are very process driven, very analytical. These are the ones who are the deep thinkers. And sometimes the shadow side of the C style is that they could have analysis paralysis, that they're just analyzing. They love data. And so sometimes they may not make a decision because they are, okay, I got to analyze this. I just need a little more time. But they're very process-driven people. And so these are the major four styles that we see. And so being able to observe what their styles are. And that's why I like DISC, because in any situation, I can observe somebody's behavior, and then I can look at, okay, oh, they may be they may be process driven, so they may have the C style. So that means they're all about the data. If I'm going to present something to them, let me make sure I have all my facts. And or if I am short of time, maybe I can give them something, a pre-read, so they can read all the facts and then I can get to the point. So now you're
Hmm.
crafting your messaging based on knowing somebody's style, or at least perceiving what their style may be. So DISC is
That's neat.
about observable behaviors, which makes it a very effective tool when you're communicating in the workplace and at home too. I mean, it works
Sure,
everywhere.
everywhere. Is there a certain behavioral index that you see is more prominent in people? Is it pretty even spaced out, or?
Yeah. So in most cases, at least the different studies matter. So Dr. Marston, Dr. Carl Jung, and others, they started out like really in the 1920s. But then there are many companies that have taken their research and they've branded into various discs. So if you were to actually Google disc, you will see various companies. And so some companies say, you know what, we have an even distribution of all the styles, so about 25% in the entire world,
Oh, wow.
they're even. But then some say that some styles are higher than others. But the biggest part about the styles that I wanted to bring out is all the styles are very effective in the workforce. They all are effective. There's not one
Good.
style. Some people think that, oh, if I'm loud and if I'm able to delegate and I'm able to have that getter done, then that must
Dominant.
mean,
Yeah.
right, I'm dominant. That must mean I'm the best leader. No, no, no. DISC is not about your leadership. All of the styles are perfectly able to be effective leaders. It's just a matter of how they do it. They do it differently, and how they work. So they're all effective. It's about how much energy does it take, but they're all effective at being leaders. And so that's the great part. Is the key is, how do I communicate better? How do I influence the different styles? How do I persuade? How are the different styles more likely to go through a,
Sure.
a major change in the workplace?
Hmm.
And then how do I craft my messaging or the training in order to really reach what do they need to hear in order to adopt this new way of working? And so that's how I use the knowledge of the different behavioral styles in the work that I do.
Sounds great. Let me go back to kind of what you said earlier. You mentioned in your leadership training, you kind of used the analogy where there's a new technology that has
Yeah.
been used in the workplace, and I've seen it in the workplace myself, where there's always somebody, or maybe they're resistant to change, and then they've done this particular job all this time. They don't want to learn anything else, and it really causes a lot of hardship in the workplace. So, I mean, what would a leader do when there's someone who just, they're in their comfort zone, they're in a little box, they don't want to learn XYZ application? I mean, how does a leader kind of, without being
Yeah,
push
yeah.
that person?
And you're right. I mean, we have come across that, and especially in manufacturing, when somebody has done a job and they've used a system for 20 years, 30 years,
Mhm.
and now all of a sudden we're saying, hey, we're going to change. And so in about 6 months, you will be doing some things a little bit different.
Yep.
And I've experienced that many times. And so the biggest part is, one, being able to understand why. Why are they feeling this way? And not to assume. I I remember one particular situation. It was the quality team, and we were implementing SAP. And so it was a food manufacturing company. And
Hmm.
I knew they were trained because they went through the training. But when the system went live, so our go live day, the quality team, they weren't at this particular facility, they weren't using the system. And so I was like, okay, I need to go down there. So of course, ordered some pizza and said, you know what, let's sit down and let's have some lunch. So
Right.
once I got there and we started to talk a little bit and I started to understand a little bit more, what I was told was, when I log, this is what the lady was telling me. She said, when I log into the system, my name shows up on top. I don't want to make a mistake. And if I make a mistake and
Oh.
something happens, I don't want to lose my job.
Oh, wow.
And you know what? My heart really went out because,
Mm,
being able to display, again, empathy is a major part of the work we do as well
sure.
as change strategists, but really being able to understand and being able to explain to her what happens and making sure that her leader knows that, hey, we just implemented a new system here. So if somebody makes a mistake, it cannot be you made a mistake, now you're out. So
Right.
now the leader needs to be able to support and create this support, this safe environment where people are able to work effectively. And if they make a mistake, then okay, how do we recover from that? How do we learn from that experience?
Exactly.
And
Hmm.
so resistance is usually not I don't want to. It's there's a fear factor there. There's something else going on, and so we have to deal with that now. If that wasn't the case, and if the person is just saying, I don't want to, this is
Lazy,
not
whatever, you know.
for me. Yes, I don't see when we do have that particular situation, the biggest part of change management is being able to explain why. What is the business need for this change? Why are we spending millions of dollars? Because if it's an SAP system, you're going to be spending up to, is 40 to 60 million dollars, or even higher, to implement this system. If the business is willing to spend that kind of money, what do we want in return?
Sure.
What's changing about your work? Today you're doing this. What will you be doing tomorrow? Making sure you have the skills, making sure you have the resources, making sure you have the leadership support that's necessary in order to make this change. So resistance management is a major factor in change management because we need to understand exactly why the resistance is taking place, and if
Hmm.
it's
For
if
sure.
it's something that is just because the person doesn't want to, then then we have to say where do you want to work, or what
Sure.
department do you want to work in, and being able to see if we can relocate. But if that's not the case, then worst case scenario is that that person may leave anyway, because
Yeah.
that now this workforce is so different than what they're used to,
Sure.
and they can't
And
seem
I've
to
seen
make
that.
change.
Hmm.
Yeah, yeah, and that sometimes that happens where they just can't make they abandon the journey, or they don't trust the business to help take them on that journey. But a big part of it is making sure we are communicating, make sure we are expressing emotional intelligence and empathy, in order to help those who want to become flexible, or even to a degree. I say this: we try to help people want to, like,
Wow.
try to improve their
Motivation.
willingness. Yeah, so we give it a shot. We give it a shot.
Well, Dr. Godfrey, I've got some comments right now in our live chat, so I'm going to
Oh,
display
please,
them
yeah.
here. So
Okay,
let's see what your comment is on this, and let me display the first one.
okay.
This came from Jean Hudson. She says, I've always worked my job and more. My problem was finding coworkers who were willing to at least do their job. So how would you talk to a manager if that you found out there was a problem with that, one of the coworkers was
Yeah,
feeling that way?
yeah, you know what? In many situations, I've gone in and with coworkers or someone feeling that they're not working, being able to understand, well, what are the requirements of the job? What are
Hmm.
they supposed to be doing, and what are they not doing? So we do a lot of evaluation, even of the job itself,
Okay.
making sure that if you're not working, is it because you just don't want to, or you don't have the correct tools or resources or knowledge in order to perform. And so really being able to pinpoint why is a major part of the work we do as well. And having those one-to-one conversations, those evaluations and those assessments, to really being able to why, what is
Hmm.
going on, what is the underlying reason. And so you really, as a change strategist, you become almost like a mini investigator, going
Sure.
in and trying to figure
Dig
out.
down in there.
You're digging deep. You're digging deep. You're building relationships. You're building rapport. You're building trust, and you're using some of the skills that we talked about from a behavioral perspective to really understand why. But you always go in with this degree of we trust generously. And when I say that, I mean we go in believing the best of people, that they really want to, but there is something that's stopping performance. And and what is that? It could be even from a degree we're seeing a lot lately, just change fatigue. There is a lot of change going on in the organization. Sometimes it's the organizational structure that's changing. Somebody's job, somebody's boss has changed. The location of work has changed.
Be a merger,
Merger. It's so much going on. So being able to consider all the change capacity in the organization as well, and all the factors that impact how we work and how we perform.
Sure.
Right? It's a lot to consider. There are many pieces to it.
This next comment I'm going to display kind of goes with a former job that I had many years ago. I don't know the exact saying, Dr. Godfrey. You probably know that it takes one bad leader just to destroy a department. And so this comment kind of brought some things back. Let me display them to you. Brenda Hawkins says, "I hear you, Gene. I had my old boss beg me to come back because after I quit, nothing was getting done." So do you see a management problem there? Or I mean,
yes. You know what? It's a cultural problem. It's the culture of the organization. So culture can be, yes, we have each country has a culture, but then you could also have a culture in the organization and culture in even different departments. Even teams can have their own culture. And so many times we had an experience recently with a client where a person became the process. So when the person left, it's like the work wasn't getting done because the person was the process. And that's very dangerous in the organization, that when you're looking at a person, because it's no surprise that she left, because, oh my gosh, the burden and the stress that must be as a part of that job to be, if I don't do it, that means I cannot take vacation, or at least when I'm on vacation, maybe somebody is calling me and asking a question.
Weighted down.
Yeah. When you just have a person being the process, the person being just one person, oh gosh, the stress of that. So I hope she didn't go back until the culture changed.
Yeah, that's right.
Or she demanded,
like she didn't.
she demanded some change before she went back, if she did. But that's a very indicator of a culture, and also the leadership, because culture in an organization is built up of the behavior of the people. And a lot of times the behavior of the people comes from what leadership either requires or what they allow. And so therefore, if you see that happening, there's something about the leadership that's promoting that type of culture. It's allowing that type of culture to grow. And we don't want that. It's not good business anyway to have one person or small group of people that's responsible for so much. Like, you really want to diversify and integrate a lot of your processes. And that's why a lot of people implement the technology, because now you are, especially when you implement a new supply chain technology, because now you're able to see across the supply chain. If I am working either in, let's say, production, I'm making something, I should be able to see, I should be able to see down the line to see, okay, this is the transportation orders and this is what's going out. Or I should be able to see, okay, this is the forecast for our planning. So we know that 6 months from now, we are headed to our peak. And so we know we need to build this. The procurement team should be able to see, okay, I know 6 months from now we need to build this. So let me make sure my suppliers are ready to give us the raw materials that we need and the packaging is ready. That kind of stuff, we need to make sure that the system is supporting our business processes. And that's a lot of times, that's kind of change that's required in today's workforce. And so that's why we need people to adopt the new processes and the system, because that's how we're going to be successful in our organizations. It's all connected.
Yeah, right. And to me, that's very unwise, making a person a process, because we've seen it, at least I've seen it in the jobs that I've been at and previously, where there is so much being relied on that one person, they're so indispensable Well, that person gets burned out, they leave, nobody else knows their job. And now the rest of the department is struggling. How they do that? What do we do? So it's good to, I guess in this case, cross train and
Yeah.
not just put so much pressure on one person, because I've seen it where that person leaves and that department in that company struggles.
Yeah.
What was their system? We don't know what they were doing. How they
Exactly. Yeah. And in those cases where that's the case, and normally it's some type of manual system. And so that's why it is also another reason why it is sort of dangerous for an organization to only have manual systems. Like, you really want to upskill your workforce and be able to implement some type of integrated system. So now you're able to, more people can see across your supply chain, more people can see what's happening. And now if you can do that, that's better decision making. That's better
Absolutely.
data, so you can make better decisions, so you can get the results that you need. So this whole idea of change management, anytime you have a major transformation, and because you really are transforming your workforce at that point in your processes, you really want to bring your people along. I always say you can have the best systems in the world. You can purchase the top of the line system. You can implement the best process. But if the people are not adopting this new way of working, this new way of thinking, this new way, this new mindset of how we approach work, you're not going to be successful. So you need to invest the money and time in your people so you can be successful and get the return on your investment from your systems and your processes. So workforce is very different in today's world. And we just have to, keep up. But I really want to say, along with that is a level of self-care. And that's why I feel that as we're working through and understanding people in the workforce, I think the major factor that I would love your listeners to walk away with is understanding yourself. Understanding how you work, how you prefer to work, understanding what skills you have, what you don't have, what you would like to develop, how you would like those to be developed, what's required of you, what do you like, what really lights your fire, what gives you energy, what takes away your energy. Really understanding yourself and building that self-awareness, which really is a critical part of emotional intelligence. Because if you understand that, when change comes to your organization, now you have a better idea of how to deal with it and how to find the correct language to articulate to your managers, what do you need to be successful? That's the major part of really spending time with yourself to really understand, what do you need? And being able to articulate that, this is what I need. Or being able to say, no, I can't do that, and here's why. And knowing that you're okay, you're okay. It's not a factor of, I'm going to be everything, and I'm just trying to climb my way through that corporate ladder, and I'm just going to be burnt out.
Absolutely, we've all been there.
Exactly. So I really want them to understand the workforce is changing. Change is inevitable.
It is.
People say that it's a VUCA world. It's volatile, it's uncertain. There's a lot of things happening in today's world. So change is here to stay. The only thing constant is change. So therefore, being able to take care of yourself and really understanding, how are you going to adopt this new change? Are you going to adopt it? What do you need to adopt this new change? And I think that's a major factor in how we're going to progress forward and be successful.
Absolutely. I agree with that. And like you said, we're in 21st century. And so, and I like that saying. I got to remember that. You said the only thing constant is change. That sums it up right there. And so, and like I've said before, and I've said many other to my peers, that, I've seen people in the workplace in not now, but in previous employment, where they just do this one thing.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what are you doing? I mean, you're kind of, you're not going with the flow. You're going to be, quote, outdated if you don't move forward.
Yes, you have to. You have to. I mean, a major factor in all of this is, honestly, I think in this past year, I saw a lot of people, and even myself, you figured out a lot of things of how do you reinvent yourself or really decide. You spend a lot of, we all of us spend a lot of time with ourselves over the past year, and really being able to look at it. What do I want? What do I want to do? Where am I most effective, or what do I need? And so, again, being able to articulate that and being okay with that, and how do you pursue, and how do you use your organization as a platform to get what you need. And it's organizations we work for organizations. I mean, I do too. We work for organizations, and even with my own company, people work for me. But how do we help the organizations work for people? How do we help the project and the work that we do work for us as well? I think it needs to be a two-way street in order to be successful. I don't think that the days of I'm pouring myself out to this job until I have nothing left to give to my family because I'm depleted. Those days are really should be over. It's really now, how do we balance this, or how do we integrate a little bit better? But again, that self-awareness and being able to ask for what you need is going to be important, because again, the only thing constant, like you said, is change. And so how do we deal with that a little bit better? How do we care for ourselves a little bit better along this change journey?
Sure. Well, let's kind of go. We mentioned two of your classes at the beginning of the program.
Sure.
I'd like to go through the other ones too. Here's another one. And ladies and gentlemen, just so you know, yes, at the very end of the show, I will bring a website address so you can look at it yourself and then see what courses are out there, and hopefully bring this over to your company, because there's some very, very good information here. So let's try this one out, Dr. Godfrey. Tell us about this one.
Yeah,
I touched on that, I think.
Yeah, well, this one I put up there as a little free course. This was me talking about, there are many reasons why there are some people that change, and you're like, you know what? Hey, some people are easily able to adopt change, and then some people are not. And it's like, well, why is that? But there are many factors that come into play, and one is sometimes cultural diversity. Sometimes there is a generational reason why. There is a behavioral style reason why. Sometimes there is a factor of emotional intelligence that come into play. So there are many areas or many reasons why some people adopt change easier than others. And so it's really a matter of our values. We value different things, and so that could be our how we grew up, our experiences that we had that was similar to what we are experiencing now. There's so many different reasons that, looking at the past, when we saw this change happen before, how did we go through it, and how did the organization deal with it? So there are many factors, and so being aware of what they are is going to level set our expectations. And that's a lot of times in what we do as leaders, and even if we manage expectations. And so having that awareness helps us do that a little bit better. So that's a course where we were just having that kind of discussion.
Okay. Have another question from the chat, kind of an education question.
Yeah.
Gary's asking, is your doctorate in business?
All right, good. So my doctorate is actually in education, specializing in global training and development. But I did my dissertation topic on ERP system implementations and looking at user readiness prior to go live of ERP implementations. I do have two masters. One master's is a Master of Science in technical and professional communication. And I also have an MBA, so a Master's of Business Administration. Wow. So I am a lifelong learner. I'm certified in all kinds of stuff. I just love learning.
Me too.
Learning. I'm just like, sign me up. So yes, it's not in business, but I have owned several businesses, and I still own a business. But it's just fascinating. I love people in business and in the workforce, and understanding the dynamics and the brain and how it all works together. It just fascinates me.
Hey, Hey, there's nothing wrong with learning. I mean, like you're here. This is me way down here. As
No,
far as
no, no.
you're,
Oh,
so
I so love you even giving me a platform to talk about this kind of stuff. You can tell I'm energized. I can go all night. I
absolutely,
know.
yes. Let's look at this other course you had
Okay.
displayed. Let's talk a bit about this one now. What is this? Train the trainer.
Yeah.
We've heard it before, but what is that?
Yeah, so train the trainer, it's in many times in many situations in on organizations when we do have a change, we have subject matter experts. And so we,
Okay.
in order to really spread the reach of the training, we do a train the trainer. So meaning that there may be a subject matter expert in the organization who's now responsible for training others, but they haven't received formal education in how to facilitate training. So
Mm-hmm.
this course is just to help those non-trainers know how to train others in a particular area. And so this was a great way to just to help leaders and others in the organizations who have been designated as a subject matter expert or even as a change agent. And how do we spread and educate an organization in different areas? And so that's the nature of that course.
Okay, well, we've got, I've actually got an email already, not in the chat,
Okay.
but they're interested, learning more about you, learning about your courses. So if someone either now for the live broadcast or later on watches this archive, how would they get a hold of you? How would they say, okay, we want Dr. Godfrey to speak in our organization? What would you suggest they do?
So the best way, honestly, to get in contact with me right now is through email. So it's K Godfrey, KGODFREY at nariscommunications.com. So Naris with an N, Naris, communications with an S.com.
I'm writing
You
that
can also
down.
find me on LinkedIn. You can find me on Facebook, on Twitter, also on Instagram. So I'm doing better with the social media. So that's why I'm like, check me on email. I'm doing better with the social media. So,
Let me
I'm
just
part
bring
of
that.
Generation X.
Is that
So
correct? Is that correct? The email there?
that is correct. Yes, that's it
So,
right there.
and you do have your website as well, too.
I do have the website, narisleadershipacademy.com.
Let me display that real quick. Let's see. So there's her email, ladies and gentlemen. Here it is. But then here's her website. Is that
Mhm.
correct? Does that look
Yes, see,
correct?
narisleadershipacademy.com. So yeah.
Okay. .com. Remember the .com,
.com.
ladies and gentlemen.
Yep,
But
yep,
you said
that's
email's the best. So let me put that back up just
okay.
so. Yeah. Let me ask you this. Do you speak in person with the organization, or
I
do you
do.
do like Zoom, or do you do both?
I do. It really depends on the organization itself. I do travel, but if especially in today's environment, if Zoom is better, then that's something that we do as well. So that's no problem at all. So we're definitely flexible on how we engage with our audience. Whichever is most effective, that's what we do. In the manufacturing setting, we definitely go to our sites as much as possible, but we're able to be flexible in that area.
I see. Well, do you
Definitely.
only travel in the continental U.S.? Do you do international, like Canada, or
Oh,
just
I do
pretty much everywhere?
international. I had the opportunity to go to the UK, to
Oh,
Amsterdam, to
wow.
Germany. I love it. I love it. I love it. So yes, if anybody out there international, yes, I would love to.
We do have people from Great Britain that log in here.
Okay,
So you don't
okay.
mind going to London?
No, not at all. Not at all. As long as it's open and they're accepting
Oh,
Americans,
absolutely.
we're good.
We're good there then.
We're good. I'm vaccinated, ready to go. So let's go.
They'll like to hear that. Well, Dr.
Yeah, no, it's
Godfrey,
lovely.
that's all the questions that I had. Did you have anything that you'd like to add on the show to let our listeners know?
Yeah, just please reach out. If it's just to ask a question or it's just for, hey, if you want to talk, just please do that. Please know that I'm not just saying that to say, oh, she's just being nice. She's not. Reach out. I respond to emails. You can tell I love this stuff and just being able to answer a question, I would love to. And if I don't know something, we'll research it together. Please do that. Please reach out. I would love to hear from you and answer any questions you may have.
Well, Dr. Godfrey, I really appreciate your time to
Thank
being on the
you.
show. This is for my audience, but I myself have learned a lot just talking to you. I
Oh,
mean, I mean, if it was up to me, I could talk to you about 6 more hours, but I know we don't have that time. So
Nice. Oh, thank you.
the best thing to do is sign up for your courses. I know they're very, very interesting. So
Yes.
I think every company, whatever they're in, retail, manufacturing, banking, whatever office it is, would really benefit. So again, Dr. Godfrey, good luck to you, and very grateful that you spent your time with us this evening.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Have a wonderful evening.
You too. Bye-bye.
All right. Bye.
And ladies and gentlemen, that is going to be all for tonight's episode of the Van Buren Variety Show. I'm certainly glad you joined us. I've learned a lot, as I always have on these episodes. Just a reminder, the show is every Tuesday evening live at 7 p.m. Central and 8 p.m. Eastern, where we have an individual guest talk about different topic. Again, could be a profession, could be a hobby, it could be a how-to segment. Hey, might even have some musical segments come up. So again, I can't tell you enough. Hit that subscribe button and you'll get notifications for sure. Hope you all have a great week. Again, thank you so much for joining. This is Bob Van Buren for the Van Buren Variety Show. Have a pleasant evening, everybody. Bye-bye.